Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammi. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired.
Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast today, everybody. Today we are here with Mark and John, and we are incredibly excited to chat with them today, finding them through the interwebs and connecting with them. We had a prep call with them back in October, which I'm going to be honest, I only caught half of because I was in the middle of the redwoods trying to call in from my trailer. But there were so many topics we chatted about with them, just trying to figure out what the best topic is today because they stand for so much. They stand for entrepreneurship, they stand for inclusion, they stand for diversity, they stand for individualism, they stand for standing up for what you believe is right. There's so much heart that we have just gotten a glimpse of in our prep call with these guys and our opening conversation with them, and we just cannot wait to introduce you to them and let you hear more about them. One thing that we chatted about, well, there's a couple things we chatted about in our prep call. One was just the topic of inclusion in different companies, in the world, in life in general, and making sure that everybody can embrace that, and they are huge advocates for that. Another one that we touched on was something that I know John or Mark had said that they don't get to talk about a lot, was sometimes the background of people in families, the things that they have to work on when they're fighting for inclusion, when they're fighting to include their families. That was a really important one on the background stuff that not everybody gets to hear about. And then something we chatted about just now that we'd like to start with was Mark's recent call in to Elon Musk about his use of poor language and inappropriate words, one in this specific instance being the R word, which we have really grown away from in society. And I love what Mark just said about this. It was not a call out, it was a call in. And this is going to be really nerdy of me to say right now. My kids have been sick for a couple of days, so we've been watching some Star Wars. And just yesterday, Yoda said, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. And it's so, and they talk about how love is what is important, and it really is. And Mark just saying that his call to Elon Musk was not a call out because that comes from fear and hate and anger. It was a call in, a call to step up, a call to show up more and show up in love and respect. And I just want to start there because I think, welcome to the podcast. Let's throw in the heavy topic and I don't know what it was that Elon Musk said. I don't have Twitter, but I want to talk about this because I think it's an incredible way of showing love and respect for someone who's not giving that back to you. And so, yeah, Mark, John, I don't know if you want to jump in on what happened there and tell us about the.
Well, first, why don't you introduce us so they can tell us apart?
Hi everyone. I'm John, and this guy, my father, Mark, and we are Zucker. And our mission is spread happiness.
Right. So we try spreading happiness, but much of that is based on showing the world what people with different abilities can do. So to come back to, the topic at hand here, because of our story and the publicity we've gotten and the way we've been able to grow and establish this business, people will listen to us. Look at this. You've invited us on your podcast. How awesome is that? But that creates an obligation for us. It creates an obligation to speak up. And in general, one of the things that we're observing is that our public dialogue is growing coarser. There's a lot more anger and mean-spiritedness out there. And we're about unity and bringing people together and finding what we have in common. But more specifically, a lot of this coarser dialogue is taking place on social media platforms. And in particular, Twitter, or what's now called X. And Elon Musk, who owns that, and has millions of followers, has engaged in some pretty rough talk. Now, that's okay. It's okay to call people out. It's okay to take a strong position. But he has repeatedly used the R word, which, quite frankly, we thought had gone away. That it had gotten to the point where if you used it in a social setting, people would gasp, people would pause. But he last week, he wanted, somebody wrote something that ticked him off. Oh, okay, that's going to happen. And he responded by saying, "Oh, you must be retarded." He did it again yesterday. And so what I did was send him a letter, an open letter that we've shared on various social media platforms that just said, "Look, Elon, you're a man of, you've pushed the boundaries, you've had great achievements, he's looked up to, he's an entrepreneur who employs thousands of people and is viewed as a role model by millions of people. He owns Twitter, and he's one of the loudest voices and most followed voices on Twitter. He has great impact. And so the language he uses matters. What he says matters. And to use that word, there was a time that was acceptable. It's no longer acceptable. There was a time, it's a dehumanizing term. It deprives people of dignity and respect. It treats them as if they're subhuman. And my son Johnny, who happens to have Down syndrome, is not subhuman. It harkens back to a time when, if you were born, if you had a child with a differing ability, if you were a person with a neurodiverse person, you were shunned.
Mm-hmm.
You were probably institutionalized. You were denied an education. You were barred from employment. You were kept out of society. Well, the world has changed. And John's a great example. He started the world's largest sock store. But there are neurodiverse people that, are running our companies and our businesses. We have entrepreneurs and actors and athletes and political activists. So to continue to use the R word is demeaning. And so we invited, we called on Elon, come on, you're better than that. Rise up, use a better language, don't be more creative. We invited him to come and tour John's Crazy Socks. Come meet John. Right? More people ought to meet you, huh?
Absolutely.
Come see the work our colleagues do. Be ennobled.
I just think it's incredible the way that you speak about it, because you could come at it from a point of anger, and I'm sure there is anger felt, but you're not. You're coming at from a point of like, we want to love you. We want to show you that there's love here and that we are all here to support one another, and you could be a piece of that. Like you're saying that to him. You know what I mean? That you can be a piece of spreading this love if you just choose to. At least that's what I hear.
Yes, and you're right. It's easy to feel anger. It would be easy to start that letter, "Dear asshole." Sorry about the language.
Don't worry.
You cited, we have these high cultural references. You cited Yoda before. I just read 2 books about experiences with the Holocaust. One book called The Happiest Man on Earth, and the other Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. But both of them talk about how for them to find solace, they had to let go of their anger. That doesn't mean they had to forgive. That doesn't mean forgetting. But they had to let go of the anger. When we're angry, we in the end, it prevents us from finding peace. It prevents us from moving forward. And one of the things, and it, here in the States, it's hard sometimes now, is we always look What do we have in common? What can bring us together? I give an example. I have a checkered past. I've done a lot of different things. Among that is I've organized some political campaigns. So here's an experience go back now more than 15 years. I had organized the Obama campaign here on Long Island outside New York City
Wow.
in '07 and '08. In 2009, I got involved in a local issue about how we change our town charter, about how we elect our town board. It's for, folks in the States, it's not really a Republican or a Democratic issue. The parties generally would support a change if they were out of power. But in our town, both the Democrats and the Republicans wanted to maintain the status quo. So we had this campaign that had progressives that had come out of the Obama campaign that the local Democratic Party wanted nothing to do with, because these people wanted change, and they didn't want change. They already controlled everything. And conservatives and Tea Party people. And in those days, we lived in this big old rambling house. We'd have meetings up there. You'd get 50 people showing up and your meeting, but you got to feed people. You got to provide people drinks. And there were times when I would just sit there and laugh, because I watched these people who had diametrically opposed political positions break bread and work together and find out, oh, we have a lot in common. You're a Met fan, I'm a Met fan. Oh, our kids go to the same school. And these people, the year before, during the presidential campaign, these very people, they stood on opposite street corners screaming at each other. And yet here they were coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to find a way to do that. We have to find, what connects us as Canadians, what connects us in the States. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes to see the humanity, or if you're religious, to see the divine spark in another person that's making you so angry.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest trick too, right? Is you can vehemently disagree with somebody, but you can still show up and show them respect.
Mm-hmm.
Period. You don't have to agree, but you can still treat them as a human, like you're saying, right? It doesn't mean you agree. It means you recognize that you're both humans and you both deserve the same amount of respect.
Well, some things have changed, right? I'll use again, political examples. If you read Robert Caro's biographies of Lyndon Johnson, talks about how Johnson would get elected and he would put the family in the station wagon and drive from Texas to Washington, D.C. They would live there. The kids would go to school there. And in those days, your congressional day was not as long or not as full. So at the end of the day, you'd come home and you might play bridge with other people. You might play poker, or you had cocktail parties or dinner parties, and you played golf on Saturdays, and you went and watched football on Sundays. So it might be a Republican and a Democrat. You might disagree on political issues, but you had all this social lubricant. You had all this time together where you could see, oh, you're a good guy. Yeah, we disagree. You're a good guy. Now, too often, if we disagree, we vilify you. Too often, we're angry and there's rage and I'm going to tear you down. And that's unfortunate.
It is. And sorry, go, Melissa.
Oh, I had this moment of, we had a guest on, his name is Brian St. Louis, and he is a speaker and he goes to schools and he speaks to young people, and he talks about a thing called radical empathy. You guys are embodying that radical empathy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
You think, Sammi?
Yeah, I 100% agree.
And what you're talking about is this radical empathy that you are showing through action.
Yeah.
And just in your respectful way that you're speaking to somebody who you could
and people would rally behind you. People would rally behind you if you were spewing hate at Elon Musk for speaking the way that he's speaking, and nobody would think poorly of you for doing that. But you're taking this radical empathy route, this high route of respecting another human, and I think it's admirable. I think it's a real beautiful thing.
I want to say something about that.
Yeah, please.
I just think my head right now. I ring from my dad. Right about Elon Musk. Um, I I have voice in my head saying the R word. That that feels that other people feelings are, but it's not. It, I I I don't like. I don't like Elon Musk saying the R word. It's really it's really hurtful and painful.
Yeah.
People think about, and all of that is so petty because I we don't need that, and I just want to get along, and I'm not here. I'm not here all the crazy nonsense, and I need to stop right now, this moment, and think that other people, uh, I just think other people have, and what the people do
Well,
of
it's
their life.
Yeah.
listen,
Yes.
you hear this a lot. It's a cliche. John has taught me so much. I mean, just listen to him.
Yeah.
How can we connect with other people? How can we take care of other people? And that's true of our colleagues here. We're always teaching us things, so you understand. Focus on people's strengths. Focus on what people can do, not what they can't do.
Yeah.
Focus on what brings us together. One of the things we did is we did this a couple of years ago. We made unity socks. And they were mainly aimed at a U.S. audience, but just to emphasize, let's come together. Let's see what we have in common. And we sent a pair of those socks to every member of the U.S. Congress, saying, "Come on, we can talk to each other." And we went down to Capitol Hill and introduced them there, and we got Republicans and Democrats to stand with us.
Yes. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what are we sorting through here?
Yeah.
Let's worry about more important things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
I want to say, John, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I just wrote that down question. John, what are your thoughts on this? And so thank you for sharing that, John, because what I think your voice can speak can say so much, and like your dad has said, you guys have this position and you have this voice that you can stand up for and speak out loud to. You represent a huge company that, like you're talking about Elon Musk's responsibility, you guys have that responsibility too. So John, you're both you and Mark, but John, your voice speaks so loudly for how this impacts you and what your thoughts are on that. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, and I think this is true about every aspect of what we do with our business, but in our lives. You said, "Oh, it's admirable." Listen, we're a couple knuckleheads selling socks. There's nothing that we do that's extraordinary or unreachable. In our business, we're selling socks. We're not inventing new AI tools. We're not, it's not rocket science. It's pretty basic stuff that's all available to all of us. And if John can do this, well, we can all do it.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, though, is your recognition of we are just ordinary people, but we have a platform that we have responsibility with. Do you know what I mean? And we all have responsibility, but as you spoke about Elon Musk, same for you guys, you have these platforms that you have now that you have a responsibility to, and how you show up and treat that is what the world takes from you, right? Because people are going to listen to someone with your position more than someone with my position who's currently nobody. And I don't mean that rudely. It's just like in the business sector, right? Like that's how people view it. And so
Well, we do a lot of speaking. We travel the country. That's when we're up in Calgary. We came for a speaking event. When we speak, particularly with entrepreneurs and other businesses, we urge them, no matter what their size is, to recognize the impact they can have in the community. And if you've got a small business and you have 3 employees, that's 3 families.
Mhm.
And you can connect to the community and you can make a difference. All of us can do that. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to have an opinion on everything. It doesn't mean you have to always be out leading things. But each of us, we're citizens in a community, and each of us, therefore, have an obligation to contribute.
Absolutely. Absolutely. John, can I ask you, what would you like to see from Elon Musk? If Elon Musk was to come and maybe potentially repair this situation to the best of his ability, what would you like to see?
What do you want Elon Musk to say or do?
I think Elon Musk uh, to say, it's just, I, I think Elon Musk say that, uh, please, please respect, please respect to the other people.
Do you want him to apologize?
Yes, I want Elon Musk to apologize, and I want Elon Musk apologize, and everyone, including different abilities.
Right, and stop using
I
that
stop
word.
using that. That's knocking off. Stop your nonsense. It you go you can take to the other take this an action of powerful authorities, and I don't
I love it, buddy. Stop your nonsense.
stop your nonsense. I stop petty.
I can share something with you about my partner here. So we start every day at 9:15 with a daily kickoff meeting. We're a small organization. We get everybody around the table, even if it's a virtual table. And it's a quick meeting. The agenda is short. We start by doing a whip around, and everybody shares a victory, something positive that's happened in the last day. And then we go around and tell us what significant did you accomplish yesterday at work? What's on the agenda for today, and where do you need help? Well, John runs these meetings, and there are a couple of things. One, don't be late. If you're late, he will kick your butt.
I feel you, John. I feel you.
And he kicks my butt so often enough. And then 2, stay on topic. And you're always saying to me, Dad, come on back now. You're a tough guy.
I love it.
And maybe we can make a video of me over word.
Yeah, you can. We'll make a video of that. We'll share that. That's a good idea, buddy.
I will
Speak up.
I will make a note.
Yep, speak up.
Yeah. Thank you
I
for
love it.
thank you for sharing that. Melissa, do you want to go?
Well, I had something, but it's a little bit of a turn, Sammy. So if you're not ready to pivot,
Okay, I have one more
You're not
question
ready
on this, and then I'll let you pivot.
go ahead.
Here we go.
ahead.
Pivot.
So,
Pivot.
pivot, yeah. I have a cup that says pivot too, a friend's one. I should have run that one. I should just use that one, interchange it out when we're pivoting. Okay, so John, thank you for sharing what you would like to see Elon Musk do. Mark, would you say yours is the same, or is there anything that
Yeah,
you'd like to see differently?
Actually, I'm not even looking for an apology. Just learn. We all just have to keep striving to be the fuller version of who we want to be.
Mhm.
And and kind of, it's what I'd say to myself, come on, is this who you want to be? And how can I do a better job? We're all we're all bumbling along trying to figure this out, and there is no answer key.
Yeah.
but come on.
Yeah. I think
And engage. That's why I invited him here. Um, just spend some time with John, spend some time with our colleagues. It'll make you happy, but it also change your perspective.
and the thing is, his apology doesn't mean anything unless there's change on the other side of it, right? So that's really, like you said, the big thing. Apology can be great, but it needs to have the heart behind it.
So before I became a heathen, I was raised as a Catholic. And Catholics have, we used to call it confession. Now it's the sacrament of reconciliation. But they have a pretty good formulaic way about making an apology. And we all recognize a true apology. And it's got a couple components. You start by acknowledging the damage you did to the other person, how you hurt them. Right? It's not about you. It's that empathy of recognizing what they did. It's taking responsibility. And so I refer to it as the NBA apology. That's what you don't want. That's where you say, I'm sorry you got upset, right? It's taking responsibility. I know I did this. There needs to be some amends. And the amends should be commensurate with whatever it is. So in Catholicism, we'll go say some prayers. And if you're a real sinner, you're going to say a lot of prayers. But it's in the cartoon version. It's the husband who is late coming home for dinner, and his spouse is making dinner, and he's late. And what do? You bring some flowers and say, "I'm sorry, I'm late." I don't know. In a cartoon version, if you had an affair, well, it's not flowers. You better bring diamonds or something. And then, but the last part is a true commitment to try to get better and not do it again. And oftentimes people, they just feel sorry. They feel bad. They'll deny, they'll argue, then they'll just feel bad, and nothing happens. It's kind of a wallowing. So that apology, and we all know true apology. We can all recognize it, and that's for all of us. Geez, I made a mistake. I hurt you, and I realized when I did that, here's how you felt. Let me make it up to you. And here's what I'm going to do to make sure I don't do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Pause for effect. You're absolutely right, Mark. Yes, I have nothing to add to that because it's just like mic drop. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you for sharing that.
I've never put that.
I was a Catholic. Now I'm a heathen, and there's.
I was raised Catholic too. My dad's actually a deacon in the Catholic Church. I was going to bring up a homily that he said the other day earlier. I won't because it'll take up time, but I have never put that connection together until you said it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so true. Because as a little baby Catholic growing up, it's like, oh, I have to go do this thing, like as a kid, it's like, oh, when you're going to confession, but to make that connection of confession and an apology, I think is really, you're absolutely right.
Well,
it's the makeup of an apology.
And to
you're right.
Play it out, that apology is in the end, you're making up with the other person, but it's really for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's liberating yourself. If we take the Catholic thing, God, he's not really being offended. He don't have to care about you. You're going saying those Hail Marys for yourself. But what can I do? And I'll share this that my wife tells me, yeah, you're no longer a Catholic, but you're going to die a Catholic. It's in your blood. It's kind of, like James Joyce, who left, but never really got it out of his system.
I'm a heathen too, Mark. So it's cool.
Sammi, do you
you go ahead and pivot.
Pivot. We should have that pivot mug that just goes across when we change subjects.
I'll get it. It's in my basement. I'll get it.
We just get up and move the couch.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh God, I
Okay.
just had an idea. Go, Melissa, go.
Oh,
No.
oh,
fine.
no. All the Friends references, John, all of them. Okay, so I want to talk about spreading happiness. And then I really want us to talk about the sponsorship as well. So I wondered if we could, where did spreading happiness come from? What is the root of that for you guys? If you could kind of speak to that a little bit, John.
I spearhead tip from me and my businesses, and I done a key. That key is gratitude and your brothers, and a month and a half.
When we, for this business,
Yeah,
it goes back to day one, to the origins of, which, we could tell the story of how and why we got started, but it was John's idea. And
my
John saying, I want to sell socks and I want to make people happy. And he's the one who understands, you repeat it all the time. The keys to happiness: gratitude
gratitude and your
do
brothers.
for others. The more we do for others, the better off we are. And in a business sense, I'm old, so I've been around.
You're older.
I know, thank you. Lots of businesses have their mission statements, and if you've ever participated in a mission statement writing exercise, well, I feel bad for you. You get together and you parse these words that no human has ever said, and then you put it on the wall and nobody pays attention. For us, the spreading happiness, we talk about it every day, and it drives our decision making. It drives our budget. It drives our how we build a community. It drives everything we do. And it's all, my partner here is the one who set the tone and set the culture.
I did.
And got us going.
So good. So good. I love it. And ultimately that was what brought us together, I think, just that kind of that commonality of how precious spreading happiness is.
No, and
Anyway.
you have to mean it, and for an organization, your values, like we have that purpose of spreading happiness, and then we could talk about the 5 pillars on which we built the business, 5 core values. Your values don't matter until you're willing to spend money on them, until they're willing to cost you money. And sometimes you just have to get on board. I'll give you 2 examples. One is kind of more generic. You've heard the old line, the customer is always right. Nonsense. Customer can be dead wrong. But we're not in the business of being right. We're in the business of spreading happiness. So, our lead person on our working with our customers is the mama bear.
Yeah.
Right? I've been married to the mama bear for 43 years now. And she's never been wrong. She'll point that out to you. But every once in a while, I got to remind her, we're not trying to win an argument here. We're just trying to spread happiness. But I'll give you another, concrete example. So what goes in every package we send out?
Every packet, I'm thinking from me and candy.
Right. Every package has a thank you note from John. On the back side of that, you get the story of John's crazy socks.
Yeah.
There's some candy. And on the packing slip, you see the name and the picture of the person who filled your order. Because we're about hiring people with different abilities. You should see that in action. So when you get a package from us, right, it comes in this brightly colored package. You're not just getting socks. You're getting this dose of happiness. So let me dig in on the candy. When we started, what candy were we putting in?
Was it Kisses?
Hershey's Kisses. And everybody loved it. You'd open the package, you could smell the chocolate. It was great. until we got the email from the woman in Florida.
Oh,
And you may not want to be sending chocolate to the South. Okay. So we went through a couple of things. We did M&Ms, but they used to say, they melt in your mouth, not in your hand. Well, it turns out they get pretty soft. And then we moved to Skittles. And we sent out over 300,000 packages of Skittles. And I kept knocking on different doors at the Mars Corporation saying, we should collaborate here. You should be the official candy of John's Crazy Sons. And we finally spoke to the right C-level executive who said, oh, this is all wonderful and fine. But you know what? We work with NASCAR and the NFL, and we're not going to do this with you. So, okay. So I'm no longer going to buy 300,000 packages of Skittles. I'll give my money to somebody else. And our Lord of the Socks, that's who runs our warehouse, he found a place that made lollipops. Some people call them suckers. Great. And we were paying 26 cents a package for for the Skittles. Well, the lollipops are about 5 cents each. So this is easy. We're going to give out 2 lollipops. And why 2?
One for you for a customer,
Right?
one for a friend.
Right? One for the customer, one to give to a friend. Because we're always looking to build relationships. We love our customers. We want to take care of them. We're creating experiences. And that's part of the generosity we want. Well, we have a strategic partner, and they sat down and they said, no way, 1 lollipop. 1 lollipop is enough. It's just the idea of some candy and 1 lollipop. And if people complain, then we could change it. And I sat there thinking, you know what? If I got to explain 2 lollipops over 1, we're not on the same page. And that's just an example of if you're going to commit to spreading happiness, and if one of your values is we're going to build relationships and create customer experiences, you got to be willing to spend that extra 5 cents a package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think
Love.
when you were saying the quote that's not that the customer is always right. And what came to my head is it's not that the customer is always right. It's but what is always right. Sometimes it means the customer's right, and sometimes it means they're not. But what is the right thing to do? Period.
Right. And at the end of the day, we have to answer to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We listen to our customers. I can tell you there are some times when we didn't do everything we said we wanted to do, and the customers say, that's okay, and I love you anyway. And there are some times where we have done absolutely everything and the customer is not happy. We have to be able to look at ourselves and say, are we living up to our mission and our promise? Are we doing the right thing?
Yeah. And that is the best kind of person you can be. Business aside, that's the best kind of person you can be is, did I do the right thing for the people that I encountered today?
Well, that's true in the business. One of the things that we talk about so we have a slightly different type of business model. We've created a social enterprise. In Canada, you have public good corporations. We don't have that in the US.
Interesting.
So we are a business. We are dependent on making a profit. If we don't, we all go home. But we also have a social mission, the way a charity or a nonprofit might, and they feed off of each other. One way to think about it is back in the late 1960s, Milton Friedman, he declared that companies had one obligation, and that obligation was to their shareholder, to their owner, and that's it. I would beg to differ. I, in fact, think that when that happened, that's when things started going wrong with many of our corporations. That a business could be a small business, could be Microsoft, has an obligation to all of its shareholders. Yes, it has an obligation to, all of its stakeholders.
Yeah.
It has an obligation to its shareholders, but it has an obligation to its employees, to its customers,
Yes.
to the community,
Yes.
to the environment. And you have to balance those things out. It turns out companies that pursue that route are more resilient, make more money in the long run, and are around more in the long run. Because you got to do, don't get me wrong, we want to make money. Turns out we like to live indoors.
Yes.
John likes eating lobster rolls. Those are expensive. But there's more to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Like,
I love that.
it's just so beautiful. Like, I just wish I had better words to wrap up what you just said, but I don't need to, because what you said is so good and so true. And like, it's why, like you said, it's why you guys are doing are able to do what you're doing, is because of the values you stand on and the beliefs that you have. It's really awesome. And part of why we fall in love with you guys and your company too.
Be careful. We are not special. There's nothing I have described is hard or, it's not, there's no rocket science. It's pretty basic stuff.
It's beautiful
It's
stuff.
basic, beautiful stuff though. And it's stuff that not everybody encompasses. And I want to just share this because for just like, I don't need to tell this about me, but just as a quick story, I used to be a personal trainer. And when I was working, like within a year, became the top trainer at the gym that I worked at. And they used to send new trainers to me and they would say, like, ask her what she does. Her clients stay the longest. She's got the most clients. She's the busiest. And they would say, what do you do? What is it that you do that makes you, like, what do you do for, like, how are you doing this? And the first couple times I was asked it, I didn't know how to answer. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing to do this. I have no idea. And I had to really think about it because I kept getting asked it. And they were like, do you like withhold stuff from your clients so that they keep coming back for more? Do you have a sales tactic? Like, what is it you're doing? And I was like, none of those things. And finally, I was like, I literally give my clients, my goal is to empower my clients so that they don't need me. That is my goal, is to teach them everything I know that is helpful to them specifically so that they can be successful on their own. It has nothing to do with my goals other than my goal is to help them to the best I possibly can. And I remember telling that to new trainers, and many of them look at you dumbfounded. Like, there has to be some sales tactic here. There has to be something else. So what you're saying is this is basic. And I'm like, it's basic to people who live through their heart and their values, which is what you're talking about. It's not basic to people who haven't figured out what that is yet.
That's fair. We sometimes, and actually it's the mama bear that frequently raises this. We're very open about what we do. We share what we do. And she'll say, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing that because then others can copy us. But forget it. Because it's impossible for someone just to copy what we do.
Mm-hmm.
First, they would have to believe. They'd have to believe in the same mission and the same set of values. And second, there is no one thing. When you were working there as a trainer, there was no one thing you did.
Mm-hmm.
It was everything. It was everything you did. It was, for us, it's the way we paint the walls. It's the way we answer the phone. It's the way we talk to each other. It's the way we talk to customers. It's the packaging. It's the products. It's everything. And you can't just pick one thing.
Yeah. So I just wanted to reassure you that you say it's basic, we're not special. And I'm like, but it's also not common. So it is basic,
And
but
it should be more common.
It should be more common. And that's our hope, is that people can learn from you guys and it can become more common. So let's jump into talking about this sponsorship with the Pro Bowling Tour. So you talked about, I like this kind of really good lead in because you talked about how you tried to work with Hershey's and you tried to work with other companies that weren't on the same page as you. How did it come to working as a sponsor with the Pro Bowling Tour, and how do you guys have similar values that allowed you to tie together like that?
Well, they reached out to us, and you know what it's like. You get 100 or, I get a few hundred emails a day of, oh, we'll make you number one on Google, or we'll do this or do that. They reached out to us. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't up to date on where the Pro Bowlers Tour was. And we're we project to be a bigger company than we actually are. So I'm also thinking we could never afford this. But they were very excited about working with us, and we got to learn more. So there's some background. Every year we do a bowling night here. We bring everybody out, go bowling. John has participated in bowling with the Special Olympics. Turns out bowling is the fastest growing participant sport. And it is the anti-NFL sport. In the National Football League, you wear a helmet. If you celebrate too much, we give you a penalty. And we want you to only use cliches when talking to people. In the Pro Bowling Tour, you're right on top of people. They encourage their personalities and idiosyncratic behavior. And it is something that's open to everybody. And they bring great joy and enthusiasm. So it was easy for us to fit together on that. So now we're making the official socks, right? The kickoff event for the tour is the end of this month in Delaware. We're going down for that. We're working with two of the bowlers, Packy Hanrahan and Kyle Troop. And then you find out connections. Turns out Kyle's got a charity supporting local groups. It turns out Packy Hanrahan grew up on the grounds of the Oak Hill School in Connecticut, where his parents have taught for over 35 years. And that is a school for people on the autism spectrum. So now we're doing lots of things with the Oak Hill School, but that's one of the connections. So we're really excited that this will allow us to tap into a new audience, to tap into people who may not have heard of us, to do something. We made socks and we work with the bowlers themselves to design the socks and make sure that they're socks they love. And we get to go have fun. What great fun, right?
Yes.
That is so awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so
Is
awesome. I love
is there a special design that's going for these bowling socks, or is it?
Yeah, we've made one with the PBA logo on it, but we have other ones with different designs on it, and we're setting up at our store a John's Bowling Shop. So there'll be other items, and we have packages that we're putting together for leagues that they could buy custom socks and get custom towels and items like that. We're all in.
That's so cool.
And we're going to go down. We're going to make videos with Packy and with Kyle. They're going to give John some lessons because he want to knock more pins down, right?
Yeah, I need that.
We may look to do some joint events with the Special Olympics. We like working with others. We like, we do that with our charity partners of what can we do together to promote and raise awareness and celebrate and just have some fun.
Yeah.
We need more happiness, right?
I love that so much. I love that. It sounds like a blast. It's going to be amazing. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah. Like, I just love like answering my question of like, how did your values line up, and just talking about how, you knew nothing about them and you went and dove into understanding more about them so that you could figure out how your values lined up before making this collaboration happen, which is like, yeah, I feel like too many people end up doing it for, oh, this is a great opportunity for us, instead of, is this a great opportunity for them and us and an impact that we can make, and do we align, which is like incredibly beautiful, incredible. I love it.
So cool.
Not that my opinion matters, but I love it.
This is so cool.
Do you have a question, Melissa? Because I do, if you don't.
Well, I do, but it is a very sharp turn. It's a very sharp pivot. So why don't you go ahead, Sammi, and then
we're at the next landing on the stairway with the couch.
That's right.
Yeah. Mine's also,
Ross is getting frustrated now.
Mine's also a pivot. So
okay, you go ahead, Sammi. You go first.
I want to ask, because you touched on this earlier, Mark. You touched on, you have an obligation to your customers, your stakeholders, your shareholders, your community, and the environment. And so like environment is one that's a really big thing for us over here in respecting it, value it, adding value to that. And I'm really curious to ask about if there's something that John's Crazy Socks does to make an impact in that area.
Sure. So here's an easy one, packaging. Um, and this is challenging for us. Turns out we're going to send packages out, through the mail or other ways. Um, and we use that as an experience. So here are two things we've done so far. One, we used to include a little discount card in every package. So it was like a business card, and you would get a discount code on it. So what we've done, we've eliminated that and just put that imprint on the bottom of John's note. So we're still putting in John's note, but we reduced something extra. The other thing we did is we worked with some graduate students from Cornell University to look at the materials used in our packaging. And so we have now shifted to biodegradable packages instead of just plastic.
Wow.
So it costs a little bit more money, but it means we're not just creating more stuff for landfills, that the packages will degrade. And we're looking, we're always looking, geez, should we reduce further what we have? We don't make our own socks, but we're looking, if there are ways that can be better for the environment and the way the socks are manufactured, and can we go to those manufacturers? We already do that over labor issues. So that's part of what we do.
That's awesome.
Wow.
We have a sponsorship. One of our charity partners is the New York Restoration Project, which plants trees and reclaims kind of abused land in New York City. So they've taken what have turned into, junkyards where people dumping crap, and turn those into gardens and parks.
Cool.
So, that's, you can't be all things to all people.
Mhm.
But there are some things we can do that are important and recognize, that this is an issue for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also can't, like you said, you can't just like be like, oh, we're going to change everything right now. You have to find the small little bits that you can change that make sense. And they turn out to be big things, right? Reducing the plastic that ends up in landfill is a big thing. If investing in a company who's restoring land that's not being taken care of is a big thing. It makes a big difference. So those are awesome. I was just curious because you specifically said environment when you were talking, and I was wondering if that was something that you guys had done already. And what you said before about you have to decide that your values are important enough that you're going to spend money on them.
Well,
And so I think that that's pretty cool that you guys are doing
listen,
that.
as we're recording this, there are these awful fires taking place in LA.
Mm-hmm.
People pointing
Terrible.
fingers at leaders and things. Hey, we know what's going on here. This is a result of of global weirding because of climate change. And we all need to address and change things. And it's not for me, you pointed out, John, I'm an old man. This stone is, this mold is already set and hardening. But it's, we just had a grandchild. It's for that grandchild. What's going to happen? And we all have to be able to look for ways we can contribute. So that may be the biggest issue facing us.
Yeah. I don't mean to put you on the spot with all these questions, but do you have a goal of something you'd like to see in that area, or is it just an area you guys have just started exploring for your business?
We don't have a specific goal. We have a direction that we're always looking to see. How can we do this so we lessen our negative impact? It's not our lead issue, right? Our lead issue is let's show the world what people with different abilities can do. But it is something we're aware of, and that we look to see what else can we do.
Yeah. That's what my husband always says to me. He always says it's not about not doing the things you need to do. It's about how can you do the things you're doing better. And I'm like, yes, okay. Reminder. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's really great. I think it's wonderful that you guys are doing, again, not that my opinion matters, but the
Well,
world will thank you.
Is it
you know, you don't put us on the spot with these questions, and I think that's a fair question to ask every business, small and large. What are you doing? What can you do?
So this is like a full pivot. We kind of talked about this a little bit in our initial conversation when we first met you. I would love to rewind time, and if you could go back to, I believe you said you were open to talking about this when we first talked. So tell me if I'm wrong, but if we could go back to John's diagnosis and that kind of part of your life and just that part of your life, if you can
Sure.
go back to John's diagnosis and growing up, John, and if you could kind of rewind us through that a little bit.
Sure. In fact, we frequently kick off our speaking engagements
Oh,
talking about John's birth and kind of
okay.
if you're out there and you're a parent, think about when you gave birth to a child. Think about that, you know, that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Here's ours. Somewhat comically, through some things which we need lots of time for me to walk you through. John was born in the middle of the night in an emergency C-section. It was okay, but we did not know that John would be born with Down syndrome. And there's always some ironies and humor. John is the youngest of three boys. Our first two were both born at major medical centers in Manhattan. John was born at a community hospital because by then, my wife said this made it too simple. It was like shooting Pez out of a Pez dispenser. It was easy. She says only a man could say that, and she's right. Anyway, he was born at a community hospital and they weren't prepared at all. And this is how we found out. The covering OB came in with the head down and then spoke to my wife and myself and said, "I'm so sorry. I have bad news for you. It appears that your son may have a slight case of Down syndrome." This was awful. Because think about it, you're a parent. The only words you should hear is congratulations. And I'm not talking about avoiding realities, but please don't tell me, don't ever apologize for my son. This is my boy. This is my son.
Mm.
Don't ever be that way. And so John's born with Down syndrome. And you get Down syndrome by having a little bit extra. What do you say?
Extra love?
Extra love. Well, all of us humans are born with 23 pairs of chromosomes. People with Down syndrome are born with an extra 21st chromosome. It's actually known as trisomy 21. And with that comes certain shared characteristics, certain facial features, low muscle tone, intellectual development challenges. Some things are inconsequential. If you look at the palm of your hand, you'll have 3 creases running across it. People with Down syndrome only have 2. Who cares?
Interesting.
But it also can come, or does come, with some significant medical challenges. So I think of it this way. It used to be in old-fashioned Chinese restaurants, you get a menu and you got your things from column A and you got to choose things from column B. Well, column A, there are certain things everybody gets, and then you get to pick and choose in column B with Down syndrome, except you don't get to choose. So John, like about 10% of people with Down syndrome, was born with an incomplete intestine. So, you know, the morning after he was born, we spent all day Sunday in the hospital celebrating family. And, you know, there was, I'm going off target. There was negativity there too. We had a close family member come in and say, you know, maybe when he grows up, he could push a broom at a Burger King. When your child is born, everything is possible. So we're in New York. When my children were born, they could have grown up to play center field for the New York Yankees. Now, if I stopped and thought about it, no child of mine was going to have my genes and do that. I'm slow. Um, but it would be possible. And when I heard that, I got up and went out to the hallway and just broke down in tears. Because here were people already limiting what my son could do. But we were very focused on the medical issues. So on day 3 of John's life, John needed intestinal bypass surgery. This was before I became a heathen. So we brought a Catholic priest into the NICU to baptize him, because we didn't know if he could survive that operation. He did. John, like about 50% of people born with Down syndrome, was born with a significant heart defect. He had 2 holes in his heart. His little heart couldn't keep up. To put it in some perspective, when John was born, he weighed 6 pounds, 6 ounces. 3 months later, he weighed 6 pounds, 5 ounces. He couldn't grow. He needed open heart surgery. And again, we didn't know if he could survive, but he couldn't live without it. You know, I could share the details of that day or 2 days with him in that operation, which again is always humor and things. But he survived and thrived. And as John grew, John couldn't talk. John learned sign language to communicate. And even today, there are certain degenerations John has. John has an eye condition called keratoconus, which is an asymmetrical thinning of the cornea, can lead to blindness. It's pretty rare, but it's more common among people with Down syndrome. And John wears hearing aids because he's already had some hearing issues. So the question we always pose to people is, given all this negativity, given these medical challenges, what could become of that baby? How could that baby make his way in our society? And the answer is, he could grow up to change the world. He could start the world's largest stock company. He could speak twice at the UN, record 2 TEDx talks, be named Entrepreneur of the Year, been by EY, testify twice before the US Congress. And nowadays we have to weigh it, we were not subpoenaed. And that's always the message we want to share, is look at the possibilities. Look at the possibilities in each of us, what we can do. And look at the possibilities in the people we meet. We want to hear their stories and hear what their superpowers are. And John, you have Down syndrome, and what do you say about that?
I have Down syndrome. Down syndrome never comes back.
No. So when you ask, what was it like, that's pretty deeply embedded or branded on our memories of starting off. And John, he's been very patient with us, letting us catch up to him of what he can do and teaching us all the time.
Amazing.
Yeah. I think, man.
Wow.
Yeah, there just needs to be better language and better understanding around all of that, right? Like there's so many ways that people could have approached all of that so much differently instead of coming with I'm so sorry, or this is so bad. It's like, here's the information, here's what we need to do to move forward, instead of, it's not a terminal diagnosis. He can live a life and he can be a very successful person. It's not a terminal diagnosis.
It's always, okay, this is where we're at, and now what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
We've had the good fortune to attend some weddings recently, a series of weddings of children of good friends of ours. And young love is always so wonderful. They're in love and it's all so sweet and going to be great. Well, we've been married 43 years. Let me tell you something. There are times it's going to be really hard. There are times you're going to get knocked down. And you can't imagine how bad it's going to be. And no matter where it is, it's okay. Now what do we do? And we'll go there. You know, we often tell the story of how and why we got started. You know, we go back to the fall of 2016. And where were you, buddy?
I was at Hunting High School, a copy my license too.
And John was trying to figure out, what do I do next? And what were you looking at?
I look at shop program and school. I can't find creative I don't like.
Couldn't find anything he liked. In the US, only 1 in 5 people with a disability is employed. But John, you're a natural entrepreneur, so you didn't see a job you wanted. What'd you say?
I want to make money. I want to create one. And I want to go be with my dad and my father start being together.
He comes to me and says, Dad, let's go into business together. This is quite wonderful. And, you know, we go along, okay, what are we going to do? And John, you had a lot of ideas.
I do.
What was one of them?
One of them is a food truck. I saw a great movie called Chef. I saw a great movie about a father and son bonding a food truck. If I'm John Favreau, a great movie called Chef. Yeah.
So food trucks sound like a wonderful idea. Everybody out there loves eating from a food truck. Right? And we're thinking, what could we make? Where would we put it?
Yeah, I love mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese, right? But we ran into a problem.
We can't cook.
Yeah, we can't cook. So it wasn't going to be a food truck. But then, right before the U.S. Thanksgiving, John had his eureka moment.
I said I want to sell crazy socks. Why socks? It's fun, it's colorful, it's creative. It always let me be me. I want crazy socks my whole life.
So we decided to test the idea. And in December, we opened just to test the idea, just the two of us. We already had the name. We built a simple website off a good Canadian company, Shopify. We got a little bit of inventory. The only marketing we did was to create a Facebook page, and I would take out my cell phone, and we made videos. And who was in those videos?
I am. I'm on the video.
Right. And it tested well. In that month, we shipped 452 orders, and we could dive into the home deliveries and some of that experience. But we knew then we could grow the business. But I want to come back. We tell that story, and we didn't do the full version. Usually, we're like a vaudeville routine telling it. People always ask, where was John? And what were you doing? And we describe that. They don't often ask, where were you, Mom? So where was I? Well, I had been running some companies, but then threw in with my wife, who, in our family, if you look from the outside, you might say the presenting condition is Down syndrome. But in fact, reality is my wife has for years suffered from a pretty chronic and serious form of depression, as has our middle son, who was plagued often by anxiety. Down syndrome, that's easy. Depression, that's hard. And so my wife, Carol, she was an attorney. She had a solo practice. And what makes one a good attorney has nothing to do with running a business. And I kept trying to get her to give it up, to stop working. And And finally went the other way. Said, okay, if you really want to do it, let me work with you and I'll help you with the business. And that's what we did. We grew the business, and that became the family business. And we pretty quickly grew it. She had 5 cases. We grew it to 150 cases. We were hiring people. But before we were working together, my wife did something you cannot do. She dipped into some client funds. When I found this out, said, okay, we have to run to that client. It was one client, and repay her. We didn't have the money to repay her, so we had to start paying her back, which we did. But Columbus weekend, October 2016, we got a letter. Remember, it was a Saturday. She got a letter at the office saying a complaint has been filed against you with the disciplinary report. And that's when we knew the gig was up. We shut the firm down. 2 days later, 2 detectives showed up at the office to arrest her. So there we were. My wife faced some jail time. But was the family business gone? So now we had no income. We held tight, said we'll do everything we can to protect you. We'll try to hold on to what assets we have. But we'll find a way forward. And in the midst of that is when John came to me and said, Dad, I want to go into business with you. I want to start a business. Wow. What I first heard was my son coming and looking for help. I realize now what he was doing. He was coming to help me. He was coming to say, Dad, I believe in you, and we're going to find a way. And I'm on board. So when you want to look and see what people can do, that's what people can do.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have 2 questions on that. One is thinking about how people responded when John was born and the things that they said, and thinking about now who John is, what he's created, and how much of an impact he's made in the world. What does that bring to mind for you? Like, does it make you feel a piece of like, I wish I could go back, just take a picture and show the people then what he's done? Or like, how does that come up for you, or does it at all?
Well, there's no going back. There's no, I don't want to find that doctor.
Mm-hmm.
It is part of what we try to do. We want to show the world what's possible. And we want to, so it's, it's hiring, but it's also sharing. So it's more show than tell. Let's show the world what John can do. Let's tell the story. Let people see. He's still underestimated.
Yeah.
People, well, does John actually do anything in the business? This is the hardest working man in Stockton. Right? What are some of the things you do on the job?
I do videos. I help Jamie.
You pick orders, you help, you
Yeah,
get the tours,
I pack.
you help packing,
You
you do podcasts,
podcast.
You run the
speaking,
meetings.
Yep.
you run meetings,
Yeah, they do.
design socks,
I take a garbage at night.
and right, you're the owner, so you take the garbage out at night.
Yeah, I just want to tell you, you know Shakespeare. He is working hard.
James Brown, the hardest working man in showbiz, and you're the hardest working man in the sock biz. So that's a lot of it, and we share things. Here, talk about keratoconus. So it took us 4 doctors to get the right doctor who could do the right diagnosis and know the right treatment. And so we shared that journey so that others would know they're not alone. That's what we can do. They're not alone, and show what John did. So it took, John wears these very thick, hard contact lenses. It took him months to learn how to put them in. And we would video that to share that. And in fact, you and Dr. G came up with process a device that looks kind of like a golf tee. It has a light shining in it. So instead of putting them in his eyes with his fingers, he puts it on this tee and lowers his head to put it on.
Mhm.
But that's, to answer your question, of it's not anger, it's not going back. Aha, we look at this. It's let's share. Let's show what our colleagues can do. Let's show what John can do. And that changes people's minds.
Yeah. Honestly, Mark and John, I know this is you too, and I think a lot of it is who you are, and some of it you've learned from your dad, but consistently what you share with us is your mindset is never, oh my gosh, this bad thing happened, no matter what it was. It was always like, here we are. How do we go forward?
Now what do we
No,
right.
not what, not can we, how can we? What can we do? And I think it's incredible. Like your kids must learn so much from you, Mark and John. I think a lot of this is just who you are, and you would have been a lot of this way regardless of who your dad was. But and I don't know your mom, obviously. I'm just speaking from this conversation. But like even when you said that what happened with your wife, like a lot of people may not have stood by when that happened. May have been like, this was your thing. You did that. That's on you. You deal with it. Instead of like, I'm here to support you. Like, yes, you need to have what happened, but I'm here to support you in any way that I can. I still love you for you, even though you made a mistake. And a lot of people don't have that grace, don't have that radical empathy, don't have that desire to help people regardless of the situation. And I think that that's huge. And everything you've shared with us shows us how much of this is who you are, not just what your company stands for. It's who you are, and you've taken that into what your company stands for.
Well,
And
that's fair. That's one of the things you learn is that families, couples that have a child born with a disability have a much higher divorce rate than the general population. And I would expand that any family that suffers a trauma, there's a higher divorce rate, a death of a child. With us, it was, let's bind tight. We're going to be in this together. And there's always humor, right? So Carol, pled guilty and eventually was sentenced to a year in jail. Here's one of the things that turns out to be true in most states in the US. If you're sentenced to a year or less, you go to county jail. If it's more than a year, you go to state prison. So she was in a county jail and was known as the county bullet. And it was automatically knocked from 12 months down to 8 months. Twice, we could visit her twice a week. We would drive an hour twice a week and to go see her, right? Never complained. That was our opportunity. There would be funny moments. Like we were invited to the county executive's state of the county address because he was going to talk about our business. And you show up and there are all these elected officials and politicians and community leaders. And people always want photos with John. So at one point, John is taking a photo with the district attorney, the county district attorney, the county sheriff who runs the jail, and the police commissioner. And I'm thinking, guys, when you go back, will you go check in on my wife for us? It's like, or Special Olympics likes to have law enforcement people help give out the medals at events. And so there we are at one, and they have some local prison guards giving out awards. And John's getting a gold medal. And when the guy turns around, I look at him and wave and I say, we'll see you Tuesday night. The good news is my wife works with us now. She's never been better. And none of us want to be judged on our worst moments. We're all complex creatures. We all have good moments and bad. We've all done bad things, and we've all done really amazing things. And that's part of the empathy. You become humble. And it's also understanding everybody's got a story. We may not know it. We don't know what struggles people are going through.
I love Mom.
I know you love your mom. There's a poem by Galway Canal called Wait. He said he was inspired to write it by a college student he met who was broken up with a boyfriend and said she was suicidal. He does say that by the time he finished writing it, he assumed she was like 3 boyfriends down the road. But it says, no matter how horrible the moment, just wait. The days have carried us to where we're at. And if you wait, life will become interesting again. Gloves will become interesting, not necessarily, the great beauties, but the life around you will become interesting. Don't give up that opportunity. It's really quite powerful and inspiring.
You're quite powerful and inspiring, both of you. I know you're not trying to be, and I see you head roll. You're like, I'm just normal, and you are, I know, but the way you speak from your heart and is really beautiful for both of you. It's really incredible. Our hearts are like very full right now. So,
and I also want to say I love seeing y'all's relationship. Like I love seeing, you see you guys looking at each other, and it is just so heartwarming to see how close you are. And I know that if your wife was in the picture, it would be the same. Like I love your guys' closeness and how hard you've worked for that, and how you've made that a priority, and it comes shining through in the way that you speak to each other and about each other. And it is just it's a really beautiful thing.
it is.
Well, I've been doing much of the yapping here, but John is the one that drives things. So, two things. One, this goes back to when John was born. It was something we heard, and we know from other parents, they've heard the same type of thing. You get people in their well-meaning saying, well, God only gives a burden to those that he thinks can handle it. Well, this is a very interesting view of the cosmos. First of all, don't ever refer to my son as a burden. But second, so what you're assuming is that God is like floating around on a cloud, and it's an interventionist God, and he looks down and he says, oh, things seem to be going well for them. Boom, let's see if they can handle this. When the truth of the matter is, John has made us better people. It wasn't that we were ready or prepared or the right people. John has taught us, as have our other children, but he's made us better people. He's made his brothers better people. But before we go too far, I want to make sure you know about the inspiration here that John is. We hear all the time, John, you're so inspiring. So we'll be driving. I'm driving a car. John's in the passenger seat next to me. And he'll text me, so what is he, like 6 inches away? He'll text me, Dad, I just farted.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
That is your inspiration. Let's be clear.
Here's the thing. I love this quote. Whenever we put people on a pedestal, it's like everybody poops. So no matter how great you are, y'all are sitting on a toilet at some point in time of the day. So yes, everybody farts,
Yep.
but you can still be inspiration.
It's my friend Bob Dylan there, Sometimes even the president of the United States must have to stand naked.
Yeah. Oh, thank you guys so much for this conversation. We're so grateful. And John, I know you didn't say, I know your dad spoke the most here, but you said the most important thing, which is I love mom. So really.
Well, we live in fear. We do.
Oh man. Is there anything else on your heart today that we didn't touch on?
No, this has been a great conversation. The time has flown. Live
We're
up
glad.
to the name, the Happy Soul Podcast. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
I do.
We've been fortunate. We've done lots and lots of podcast interviews. Sometimes the hosts are lazy. They don't really do anything. They just show up. They ask some generic questions, and you'll see. We'll talk and fill things. But you guys were really engaged and thoughtful, and you pull things out of us that we don't normally say or share. And you took us down interesting paths. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for that. That was kind of you, but honestly, we're the ones who are honored over here. I have like one last question I really want to ask you, and then we will give you guys your time back. And just I thank you so much, honestly. We're really excited to release this episode. But my one question is a question we ask in some form or another, everybody. And I know that you guys are out there spreading messages all the time of happiness and love and inclusion and diversity. But I want to ask, is there something that comes to top of mind today? If you could send one message to the world right now in any regard of any of the topics that we've had, be it a child born with Down syndrome or somebody going through depression or starting a new business, is there one thing, that a piece of advice that you could say to somebody right now that's kind of sitting there heavy for you?
Well, I'll go first. I never want to follow you. That's hard.
Yeah, I had two things other than that.
Okay. Well, kind of in keeping with this, and we're not too far after Christmas. Think about the Christmas story. This child who was born in a manger surrounded by animals, who could not find a place at the inn, was not welcome. That child could grow to change the world and be the most famous person in history. I won't get into the religious aspects. And think about that. It's the message we send. Look at the possibilities in each of us, right? It's the Rosa Parks story of just sitting on that bus and saying, enough. And you can change the world. And each of us can do that. And think about the people we get to meet. That each person we meet can do that, can change our life. We just have to let them have that opportunity. Buddy, you got words for people?
Yeah, I have 2 words. One word, follow your heart, follow your dreams, work hard, and show you can do. And a last thing, I want to comment. I love my mom. She's beautiful, she's fun and funny, she's stunning.
That she is. That she is, buddy. All right. We got to do a little business here. You got to be hard-headed too.
Yes.
Where can people find us?
Go ahead, JohnCrazySock.com.
John'sCrazySocks.com.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
follow us on all of the social media platforms. Just look for John's Crazy Socks. Here's the deal. You buy from us, you get great socks. We have over 30,000 5-star reviews. But when you buy from us, you help us employ people with different abilities. More than half our colleagues have a different ability. You help us give back. John has now donated over $800,000 to our charity partners like
Special Olympics, National Down Society, and American
Autism
Society.
Society, right? But most of all, you help us spread happiness. And we need you to buy those socks. If you don't buy the socks, we all go home. Yeah, we're out of business. So we need you to buy those socks.
Yeah, and now you just listen to a Happy Soul podcast.
oh, you
Oh my
guys,
gosh.
we're just so full of joy and appreciation. We love spending this morning with you, and thank you for your openness, your honesty, your candidness, and for just coming and really showing up and being here with us this morning. We're just so grateful to spend this time with you.
Absolutely. Ditto everything she said. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammi and Melissa.